Hey, everyone.
Yeah, no, Jerry, I turned on the recording already.
Awesome. I'll give it a minute to see if Eric joins. All right, let's get started. I'm not going to share the board today because there's only 5 issues and they're all the blueprints and the CI build stuff. So we can probably skip that and dive into the specifics soon.
Yeah, staffing plan has been consolidated into one issue, one single issue, everything in one place. What we wanted to do is activate the DB headcount reset as soon as possible, then activate the staffing for sharding in about 1 or 2 weeks after the blueprint MR is merged. So details are in the issue. Any suggestions or questions?
Why do it after the blueprint is merged? Why not parallelize them? Because people need time to get settled and communicate and get to know their teammates and things like that.
Oh, sorry. I meant to activate means they get started to work on it. But in this 2 weeks, we can figure out who is going to join this team. Yeah, sorry. Activation means they start to work on that.
And that's documented in the timeline. Basically moving some people immediately is the beginning of this week versus moving people at basically the cutover of the release on the 19th of April.
Okay, if no more questions, we will work offline to identify the people who are going to join these 2 staffing plans after the approval. Jerry, over to you.
Yeah, I was just asking to see if there was any movement on CI builds, but writers already answered that were consumed by rapid action. So
yeah, so we have been consumed by rapid actions, but my question is, do you think we should prioritize CI builds over rapid actions, or are rapid actions the priority for the time being?
My vote would be, I mean, rapid actions are probably going to be winding down in the short term. So we should probably focus on those to ensure the stability of production, and then quickly pivot to CI builds, which we know it's an incoming trend, but midterm. That would be my feedback.
It makes sense. It's aligned with what I've talked about with my manager. So thanks for confirming that.
Jerry, just a quick question. Do you mean the partitioning of the CI builds table or PK migration?
I was the first one, the partitioning. So I mentioned later that while we should keep status on what's going on in rapid actions, I'm not going to make it an item in this working group because it's already being discussed by essentially this group in the stand-up. So I'll keep an eye on it and bring up any items that I think, or anybody should be able to bring up any items they feel are relevant that are happening on rapid action to this group. But I rather not spend time here talking about that, given that it's already being discussed in the stand-up.
Yeah, but heads up to Andres and Yanis probably, because we tend to combine the PK migration together with partitioning. So maybe we need to plan together accordingly.
Yeah, I have a question about this as well a little later in the discussion section.
Yeah.
All right, so I started the MR on sharding, and I know a few people have already been requesting feedback. I have a bunch of things that I need to apply to it, but anyway, just giving awareness of that because it's an important one. My question to Eric is, does this address, excuse me, the conversation we were having last week about namespaces versus something else, et cetera, at least as a starting point?
This is your estimate MR 78442?
Yeah. It's very high level. It's not a detailed thing.
And this is, oh, I see. Well, let me read it and I can get back to you today.
Cool. Toon, you're next.
Yeah. Also, I pushed up MR to add the glossary table and also including the sharding in the scope. So please help to add your comments into that MR. Yeah. Thank you. Then Jerry, over to you.
All right. I put this in the blocker section because I'm gonna treat it as a blocker. We don't have dates for when these blueprints are supposed to materialize. That doesn't mean we cast them in stone, but it would be nice to have something to measure against. So I was sort of raising my hand to say, can we assign due dates to these things? And then as we approach them, obviously we can, move them as we see fit, given all the other work that's going on. But right now, I just feel that if it's sort of an open-ended thing, we're going to continue to sort of talk about, hey, we're going to write these, we're going to write these, we're going to write these, but we never will. So does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Do folks have a best guess at this point? We can go ahead and fill them in now and then just start, tracking them. Andreas, maybe start with you. It's each individual. Like, thanks for the names. Like, just asking.
To be honest, I'm still unclear about the scope of this. So I was going to figure that out this week and come back with a date, if that's okay. Right now, we only have that notion in the handbook, I think, about what we consider read mostly as a pattern. And I wasn't sure if that is sort of more than just caching small tables or what the scope of this is. So I can't really tell.
Yes,
about the, data at the moment.
The license table, 8,000 reads per second against the database. I don't know if it makes sense to have that in Postgres and force Postgres. Like, it's obviously being read from memory, but it's also forcing Postgres to execute 8,000 context switches per second. So maybe we can move it to Redis on boot or whatever. So that's the general idea, that there are some tables out there we need a place to put this data, and we chose Postgres, and that's totally reasonable. But maybe it's time to maybe keep the authoritative source in Postgres, but not, just use Redis maybe for these things that we're reading wholesale, because these are, as far as I understand, for licenses, we used to select star and consume the entire thing. So that's where I was going with that.
Okay, and the expectation for the blueprint is to basically summarize that problem, give an example with the license table, summarize solutions that we know that we want to pursue.
Right.
Okay.
But it's also like the one solution you're confident in, like it doesn't have to be correct. It can be challenged, but it should be like, I think this is the direction the organization needs to go. And even if there's 3 policies, possibilities, like definitely have a favorite.
So Andreas, do you think you can give us, based on that scope, can you give us an estimate on either today or on Wednesday? Or
yes, sure.
Okay. Ines is next. And sorry, Jerry, I'm just driving this a little bit to.
No, I'm getting what I asked for, so that works.
So yeah, we're wrapping up all the actions from the previous weeks. So hopefully I will start working on my blueprint at the end of this week, and I will have a deadline set by next meeting. I will have an estimate.
And can we collaborate together, because it feels like CI builds table is similar to some extent?
Of course. And I can create a first draft, and then we can discuss.
Cool,
if
thank
you
you.
Or we can sync.
I put an April 7 once on the sharding one, which I think is overly optimistic. It's not going to happen because we don't have a DRI for it yet. So we will update. But for me, and looking at the table, it just shows me where we are. So thank you. Toon, you're next.
Yeah, actually, I want to circle back to what's happening next on that execute the headcount reset. So question to Eric.
Before your 3 bullets in, can I vocalize 3A first?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So in general, we should, this section was empty. We should always have something here. Like this is the most important thing out of this working group is maintaining momentum and driving completion here. So even if we start the meeting with nothing, we should be populating this with like, yeah, this is the stuff people are committing to delivering. So the things I picked up on already are, we talked about the DRIs below driving the blueprints, and we added dates for those. Chun has the headcount reset item. And then I heard it mentioned, but it was something about like folks are kind of consumed with the rapid action currently, but eventually they're going to close that work and then start executing on what's here. I don't know if I wrote that correctly, so I put a question mark after it. Does that seem right? Should we do this? Should we have this at the end after blockers and discussion, or how do we make sure that we're always exiting the working group with we're all on the same page about this? Because like already we got to the point where we covered the headcount reset, but now Chun is asking, do I have approval or not yet? So we must have missed something up above.
I think it should be the last thing in the meeting because discussion may also have some things and expectations around it. So yeah, it seems like moving it to the last thing on the agenda makes the most sense.
Okay, so I'll move it in the template of above for next time. And then I'll just get rid of follow-up items because it feels like that's the same thing. Okay, so Chun, your question on headcount reset?
Yeah, is it fully approved, the whole package, or only the one portion of it? There are 2 portions. One is the DB team headcount reset, one is staffing for sharding.
Can you walk us through the plan?
Yes, how about I share my screen here. Let me enlarge it. So let's just, the total headcount request is here at the top of the table, 11.5 headcounts. And actually it's separated into 2 requests. One is the database team headcount reset. That's for database team temporary staffing, time boxed for 3 months. This part requires three engineers, and then the sharding team actually is another part of the request. So I'm just wondering, is the whole package approved or only one part of it at this point?
So are you looking for like e-group approval, or are you looking for more like product approval? I think product has approved it from the perspective they're supportive of investigating, seeing if we can find appropriate headcount, or we can make other prioritization decisions. So basically we're at the next step where we can start identifying people from that perspective, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, because product drives the investment, so I think a product approval is what I'm looking for. So
yeah, so we've gotten an OOPS sign off at this point. So and I think I can't
Scott's
remember.
also supportive. Yeah, it was in Slack. He hasn't come to the issue yet, but
it's approved from the perspective of the next step is to start identifying people and what the trade-offs are that we're going to be making associated with that.
Yeah.
So let's just not use the word approved, because it's not approved until it's a specific proposal where this person is being drawn away from this team. There's going to be an impact to that backlog, and they're going to be moved here. So you have kind of like directionally, it seems okay. Go figure out the heads, and then that's the plan that can either be approved or unapproved or changed or counter-proposed or something like that. And so I think you're halfway to request 1. And then for request 2, if we don't have our sharding blueprint yet, do we know what we're doing? Are we comfortable saying, yes, it's this many heads and this is who they would be? It feels like we're not even halfway to a one on that one. So I'd probably break these up into two different items.
Yeah, so I specifically did not want to do that, Eric. And the reason why is because I agree with your sentiment. But the problem is that going to product and then 2 weeks later coming back with, okay, now here we're going to do another headcount reset. We're better off just going after it in the same swoop. And if we decide that we need to ask for more, then we can make an adjustments in process associated with that, would be my recommendation. So,
I mean, I'm more worried about individuals and manager-managee relationships being rendered apart than about product management. I mean, we're iterative. They should, PM, I think, is totally fine consuming a high rate of change on these things. But if we're at the point where we can say, we can name these 3 people, we're going to transition to the sharding team, and heads up, we may do this again next week, then yeah, we can do that, if even without the subject matter.
Yeah, I think we have to start the conversation now, because like even if we untangle those folks, it may be April 19th before we see them, right? So like my view is this is kind of working in parallel. So the only question is what urgency do you want to have? If we don't have this urgency, then we may not see those folks till May 19th. As an example, short of us saying drop everything and this is the most important thing, which then puts a much different development experience for them.
Yeah, I think it's urgent. So then what is the, we don't know quite what they're doing yet because we don't have the blueprint, but like, what is the ask? We're in the,
So we have names for sharding, right? Or there's been some conversations for names for sharding. And those, I mean, I would love to, I get what Christopher is saying, but I would also love to decouple those two. Because database seems like a more general thing, but sharding we know specifically, and the blueprint is something that we need someone with math skills to produce.
But what Christopher is saying is that if we wait until we have the artifact, as I suggested, and do these 2 headcounts resets separately, we may be waiting to populate the team with anybody until May 19th. So if that's the case, if we know enough about, well, someone's going to shard something, let's go get 3 people now and trust that they're going to be good fits for whatever we end up designing.
Yeah, so my staffing strategy is this is working on specifically what needs to be done as a general mechanism. And then we push it to the teams, the stage teams, potentially to actually do some of the additional sharding work. So depending on how that plays out, the question would be is how many you need for general mechanism implementation in the short term to basically accelerate the program. And then if we need to come back later on and say, okay, now we need like stage specific work done, then we can potentially push that to those teams and get that prioritized within those teams. So that was kind of how I was hedging the ask at this point. If you feel like this is like, I'll apologize to Chun. Chun, I told you to combine these two. If you want, Eric, if you think it's better to separate these out, I'm okay with that. I'm just trying to emphasize urgency on this from that perspective.
Yeah, I like the urgency. I would separate them into two proposals, but I would work on both of them kind of concurrently. So even if it's not the 5 for the sharding team, let's get it to the point where we know the 3 best people for this type of project and start to move them over, let's say. We can do another headcount reset later and just be transparent about there may be another one coming. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, I've tried to provide visibility that these asks are coming, and that it seems like it's better to come up with a list of names as opposed to like the usual process of funding one from this group, one from that group. So I think we're proceeding on that front, and that way product has a list to react to, and we can see if it works and go from there. But happy to change course if that doesn't seem like the right approach here.
No, I agree. I think this is less about drawing like relative investments in areas of the product or roadmap. It's more about individual sort of skills and experience in terms of fitness for this type of project.
I'll separate the issues into two proposals, and I think next week my outcome is the names for the headcount reset and the 3 names for sharding. Is that expected from me? Just to double check.
Does it take a week?
No, I think we can strive towards like an end of this week.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, in general, I would treat this working group, this meeting as like we're checking in at least this often, but don't block anything for the next working group. Try to work on everything async. Otherwise, we become interrupt driven, and things that could take a month and a half end up taking 6 months because we're always waiting for the next meeting.
Okay. I'll take actions. So separate into 2 proposals and find the names for the headcount database headcount reset, and also 3 names for the sharding. And I'm shooting for end of the week. I will have all the names ready.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
So then are we down on discussion?
Yeah, just a quick question. Who will be the PM DRI on this working group? Josh, you have a comment there?
Yep. So I think use me for now. I'm just discussed briefly with Fabian this morning, but it'll I think be one of us. But put me down for now, and we can see if that evolves.
The item I had is related to the comment earlier. So I do think that it's important for this group to have awareness about some of the midterm stuff, like the primary keys work and CI builds. I don't want to report on it because it's being discussed elsewhere. But one of the things that I was trying to do today is sort of navigate the PK issues, and I just got lost. So if there is, I was going to ask if there's one issue per PK or whatever, a set of issues that I can track specifically versus trying to, like, there's a lot of work involved in there, and there's like research work and figuring out this and figuring out that. But if there's one place where I can track a more overall view of what's going on here, I would love to hear about it. And maybe I should just reach out to Craig directly.
We have added a summary in the description of the epic, and we are going to try and update it. Can you check it? Can you check if it is sufficient?
Okay,
Or,
yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, so because we know that there are so many issues there, so if you can check the top epic and tell me if something is missing, if you need something different.
Okay, I will try that then. Thank you. And then since we're starting to run low on time, yes, I will create a separate call so that the recordings come to me. I thought there was a way to transfer call ownership, but I'll create a new one and update the calendar invite.
Thank you.
that is it for today. Cool. Thank you, everyone. See you Wednesday.